guys, what's up? So I wanted to make a quick video just about some information for you guys about gears. So I just gonna start a little bit from the beginning. We got gears. We found him in the Walmart parking lot. He was about 12 weeks old. So we've had him his whole life. Just before his third birthday, his birthday's in March. In January, I was in Los Angeles working a fitness expo. When I got home back to my hotel room, Rich contacted me, let me know that Garrus had a nightmare that he couldn't wake him up from. And I thought, well, that's just silly, doesn't sound interesting, whatever. And then, a couple of messages later, it was just like, oh, don't worry, I threw water on him and he woke up and he was fine. I'm like, okay, you guys are doing weird stuff back there. That's something I was worried about. This is in 2013. So January 2013, that was going on. In March, on spring break, I remember walking into the living room and seeing Gears kind of down into the couch. Our couch was kind of destroyed, the couch we'd had for a long time. It was a college couch, so I can't say that it survived. And anyway, so I saw him down on the couch, and I yell at him. I'm like, Gears, stop beating the couch, So I walk in there, I grab a hold of him, I pull him out of the couch, and he's having a seizure. And I'm like, whoa, he's having a seizure. I call Rich in there, and I'm like, whoa, he's having a seizure. And Rich is like, oh yeah, that's what he did before. And I was like, that's not a nightmare. It's a freaking seizure, And I thought, man, that's crazy. So we took him to the vet. They did blood work and everything on him. They didn't find any obvious causes for it. And so I thought that was the end of it. It ended up that he ended up having a seizure about every 2 or 3 months. They lasted about 30, 40 seconds, and then he would be otherwise normal. His next seizure actually came when we fed him an ice cream cone. Gave him a vanilla ice cream cone. In the middle of eating it, he started having a seizure. A couple months later, I was giving him Greek yogurt. And a lot of it had dropped onto the floor, and I just let him lick it up, and he went into another seizure. And so this is my first indicator that he may have developed some allergies that may be contributing to some seizure activity, So, so at that time, we cut out giving him people food. He didn't get, obviously, any types of dairies anymore because he kept having seizures, right? Anyway, so this is 2014. So all 2014 and most of 2015, he would have a single seizure, 20, 30 seconds. And then every couple months, wasn't like a huge, thing. In June of 2015, Rich was at the academy, and I was home alone when Garrus had a seizure. Nothing significant about the seizure. I got him out of bed. I took our other dog out of the bedroom, and I went to go get towels and things like that to clean up because he does pee during seizures. And I started hearing banging against the dresser. I thought he was pacing, and just pacing into the dresser repeatedly. That turned out not to be the case. He turned out to actually be having a second seizure. And first of all, I didn't know dogs could have seizures. Okay, so the fact that he has seizures anyway at this time in my life, this is June of 2015, was like mind-blowing, right? And now he can have 2 seizures at a time. And I wasn't well versed in, seizures or anything like that. I knew how to identify one and, basic things like that. Anyway, by the time I got our 100-pound seizing pit bull into my car, which I did by wrapping him in a sheet, and I drug him. Through the house, down the stairs, across the concrete, got into my car. I used a piece of board as a ramp to slide him up like a cot into the back seat, and I drove to the veterinarians. By the time we got to the vet, we went to Parker Emergency Animal Hospital, which is in Parker, Colorado. He had already had 12 seizures, and they were able to give him medication to start controlling them. they recommended that I start medication. So I thought, okay, I guess we'll, you know, see where we're supposed to go. And at this time, there's actually a breed ban in Denver for Gears's breed. So I actually wasn't sure what my treatment options even were or where I could even take him because there's so many BSL laws about where he could go. I get into a veterinarian who admittedly tells me that he doesn't have a lot of experience with epilepsy, but he would start phenobarbital. So we started phenobarbital from July until October. He continuously had 8 to 10 seizures every week. By the time we got him into Lamar, Colorado, which is where we currently live, that's our duty station we were given by the Colorado State Patrol, which is what Rich works for. So we moved here. Had a new house. Rich was in training. I was here by myself. I didn't know anyone. And the 3 veterinarians here, one of them told me that they don't treat seizures, they just put to sleep. The other one told me he didn't know anything about seizures and wasn't willing to even look at him. And the third one told me that he doesn't keep benzodiazepines on hand, which are what you use to treat seizures, like Valium, midazolam, and all of its cousins, which is what's used to stop seizures. He didn't keep those on hand, but he would be willing to watch Gears. And I thought, well, what's the point of you watching him? Like, I can watch him at home. Anyway, in December of 2015, I was desperate. Gears was laying on the kitchen floor, and he was turning blue. And so one of the other troopers that worked here, his wife, was very, very nice to us and really helped me out a lot. So I called her. I had heard recently that they had to have one of their goats put down and that the vet came to their house. And so I called to ask for information on that vet. And she said that that was a traveling veterinarian, but she thought that one of her friends had recently moved to town and that he was a veterinarian. So she would see if he was available. I gave her my address and asked her if she could call me back immediately. Gears had stopped actively seizing, but he was blue. So about 5 minutes later, this guy with this blonde girl show up to my house. I come in the front door and he comes running up the steps to Gears. They start an IV and they push Valium into him. They pick him up and they put him in their truck and he says, "Follow me." And he leaves. And Rich looks at me and he says, "Is that the vet?" And I thought, holy crap. I mean, I hope so, because he just took my dog, you know. So we followed this guy to his family farm, and it turns out it is. He is a veterinarian. His name is Dr. Jensen Stoltz, and he had his he's had his technician there. Her name is Chelsea, and they took care of Gears. And he sat down with me that day for about an hour and a half and explained epilepsy to me, explained to me what seizures are, explained to me what threshold meant, explained to me all these things that these veterinarians could have explained to me over the last 2 years of managing this. He gives that home medication, and he tells me that we are incorrectly dosing phenobarbital, that it's greatly underdosed. So we start working on the phenobarbital dose. Long story short, over the next year, all of 2016, we would reach therapeutic levels of phenobarbital, and the most we ever got was 15 days. So he was having 5 to 8 seizures every 15 days, regardless of what we did. We tried changing dog foods. We took out chemical cleaners out of our house. We changed shampoos, you know, because essential oils trigger, and chemicals trigger, and smells trigger, and there's all these things that can actually trigger epilepsy in dogs. And so we were doing all those things. And in May of 2015, May of 2016, we started potassium bromide. So at this time, he is on phenobarbital, Keppra, and potassium bromide. He was on all three of those medications from May until September of 2016. His phenobarbital and his bromide were in therapeutic levels, and that just means that that's considered the point where he's supposed to be having relief, and he wasn't getting relieved. And we had an oddity also happening. So we would take levels of phenobarbital, and they'd be within range at like 22 or 23. We'd take levels again 2 weeks later without changing anything, and they'd be at 12. So we had a real struggle of trying to figure out why we couldn't keep up adequate phenobarbital levels. The potassium bromide actually ended up causing a significant decrease in quality of life. So, and we were still having the same amount of seizures every 15 to 20 days. So at that point, I'd stopped phenobarbital completely, potassium bromide completely, and so we were only on phenobarbital because I thought, well, I'm not going to give him all these medications that aren't working anyway. It's decreasing his quality of life. We obviously need to focus on getting this phenobarbital to therapeutic levels. Come December, he started losing weight. By January, we were referred to the Colorado Springs Specialty Surgery Center for a total bowel obstruction. So we went through the bowel obstruction. As you can see here, he had eaten 2 rope toys. You know, those ropes that have the knots in them? Yeah, he ate those. I didn't even know dogs could eat those. And he ended up having staples across his belly. We got very lucky. There was no perforated valve in that surgery, so they were able to just pull it out and be done with it. Dr. Micah Miles, I think, was his veterinary care specialist there. That clinic was great with us. They set us up on a payment plan to help us be able to pay for this intervention for him. What's interesting about this turning point and why I tell you all these stories is because this is actually where we first discover that he has a systemic infection. And there's no other signs. He never had pus, never had drainage, never had smells, never had fur falling out. He was never red. None of those traditional signs of allergies ever presented itself. So there was no reason to consider any of this information. Anyway, we find out about this study going on at the Colorado State University Research Center for canine epilepsy, and they want to test the efficacy of CBD oil on canine epilepsy. The parameters of the study were that the dog has to be having 2 or more seizures in a month. So more than 1 seizure a month, with 2 seizures not happening on the same day. So they didn't count clusters. You had to have actual 2 individualized sessions of seizures. They have to be on the same medications for 60 days. So that was the parameters. And so after the bowel obstruction, right? So the bowel obstruction, he was on antimicrobials and he was on broad spectrum antibiotics, 2 different kinds. He ran that for 8 weeks. This is significant information for you guys, so that if you do, if you're considering donating, you might be able to understand why the dermatology appointment is actually very, very important for gears. So we ran 8 weeks of antibiotics and antimicrobials. Once that completed, we found out that we were accepted to this study. As long as this had cleared and he was not on these antibiotics anymore, obviously, because they don't want anything interfering with the study of the oil. So 30 days after that he had been cleared, he had stopped his medication from the bowel obstruction. This was March. So in May, we were able to go to CSU, and we had an MRI done, MRI imaging, and they also did a spinal fluid tap. They also did a liver bile acid testing, which just tests the function of the liver. And what they found out was no significance, like there was no tumors or anything like that present that could indicate a physical cause for epilepsy, and that gave him a true diagnosis of idiopathic epilepsy, which just means seizures from unknown causes. But what the study did show was systemic inflammation from his spinal tap, and he had fluid in his left inner ear, which I thought was kind of weird because we'd never had any inclination that there was anything wrong with his ears. So the neurologist says that she says this is actually an inner ear and middle ear infection, and they need to treat this. And I'm thinking, gosh, he was just on like all kinds of antibiotics and stuff for 2 months. Like, how is this possible? He still has an infection anywhere in his body, right? So she's like, I don't know. So we ran antibiotics again for 4 weeks, and when they came back and they did a secondary spinal tap and MRI to confirm that this was no longer part of his physiology, and it was clear. So realistically, this is 12 weeks of broad spectrum antibiotics and antimicrobials to try to clear this inner ear infection. It finally cleared. What's significant about this is that from the time he started antimicrobials, antibiotics at the CSU Specialty Center post-surgery, he went 15 months seizure-free. Okay, so from January of 2016 until 2016. What year? It's 2017. So from January 2017 to March of 2018, no seizures. No seizures, none. And we did not change medication. Okay, he stayed at the same dose of phenobarbital. He stayed at the same dose of Keppra. We did do the CBD oil study. He didn't have any seizures while he was on the oil. We stopped the oil in October of 2017. So anyway, so all of this is going on, right? So we get this infection cleared. His spinal fluid looks good. His ears look good. So we're like, okay, great. The neurologist at that time, this is in June of 2017, she did recommend that we get an appointment with a dermatologist to have an extensive allergen panel done to see what caused the ear infection to begin with, A, and B, to take a look at the inner ear to make sure nothing was damaged. They think that it could be allergies, or it just could have been extensive seizure activity that had caused this, pressure buildup. Well, we really couldn't afford to do that. And I'm like, look, we are maxed. We had bowel obstruction surgery. He was in a specialty center for a week in critical care. We had an MRI. We had a spinal tap. We've done that twice. We're driving 5 hours up to Fort Collins to CSU, back and forth every month, which included hotel fees for me, overnight stays for him. We were maxed. That was it. We had also bought a fixer-upper house that we were trying to also, fix up because we bought one that needed fixed up. So anyway, so all of that happened. I also went back to school so I could finish my paramedic. So it just wasn't possible, right? In March, he had a seizure, a cluster of 8. Nothing had changed. And I was like, maybe just a fluke, In April, he had another seizure, a series of seizures that he ended up being hospitalized for. At-home treatment and interventions did not help. In May, he woke up in the middle of the night with these swollen eyes. So you can see here how his eye has swollen. The inner eye actually swelled past the actual eyeball itself. So this is our first indication that he has some allergies going on. So he was started on allergy medication, and we did 4 weeks of Baytril antibiotic, which is what he was on for the 4 weeks before. So May to June, we started this antibiotic. In June, he had another bout of seizures that were really bad. He had 11 seizures, and he also had to be hospitalized for that in June. This did go away, though. The swelling went down. We did topical antibiotics for his eye, and this went down. In July, about 3 weeks ago, this developed, which is inflammation of, I forgot what it's called exactly, but basically it's this third eyelid. So dogs have like an actual third eyelid. So they have an eyelid that they blink with, right, that protects the globe. But then they have a third eyelid that comes up. It's actually really creepy. If I could get a video of it, I'll post it. Anyway, this thing is swollen. And so I take him to the vet. This is about 2 weeks ago. I take him to the vet, and I'm like, his eye's swollen again. At the same time, he has this thing going on with his nose. His nose, he was waking up. Let me try to pull up the picture here. So he was waking up with like some stuff on his nose, which was new, obviously. I'm like, what the heck's on your nose, dude? And it was clogging. Sorry, it's gonna take up the whole thing here for a second. Take this down so you can see his little nose. So you can see that on his nose. It's crusting over a little bit. Obviously, I am not trying to edit this video at all. I'm just being real with you guys, right? So, okay, so this is started to develop on his nose now, right? So this is about 2 weeks ago, and I take him in, and I'm like, my dog can't breathe. Like, seriously. Like, he can't breathe. Something's going on with his eyes. Like, we need to figure out what's going on. So, like, okay, cool. So they start antibiotics in his eyes again. They do a saline flush on his nose, and they look in his ears. And nothing significant showed in his ears. They didn't do an otoscope at the time. So, whatever. Anyway, so we try this for a week, and doesn't work. It actually gets worse. And so after all that happened, it got worse. And so this is an active like recording screen, so like you're gonna see lines and stuff. I'm not gonna edit it because I just want to be 100% real, right? Anyway, so on this past Thursday, today is August 7th, okay? So on August 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Was that Thursday? On Thursday, I had, Thursday, August 2nd, I had a friend come over and pick up Gears because I was out of town for school and take him to the vet. Something was wrong with him, and I didn't know what it was. So they took him to the vet, and they did an otoscope, which means that they basically put this little camera down his ears, and in his left ear, it does show that the tympanic membrane is swollen and has a lot of mold and stuff around it. So with that information, we started him on Baytril, but on Sunday, this past Sunday, August, what is Sunday? Sunday was August 5th. On August 5th, I noticed that he wasn't blinking. Like, he doesn't actually blink his eye, So that was kind of concerning, And his left lip, he was biting it. Like he would lick his lips, and then his lip would tuck into between his teeth, and he couldn't get it out. He just keep trying to push it out. Well, turns out that this is a series of symptoms known as Horner's syndrome. Horner's syndrome is when there is a paralysis of the nerves that operate the facial muscles, which include blinking and being able to actually chew on that side. He can no longer use them. And one of the primary things associated with Horner's syndrome is inner ear infections, deep inner ear infections. There are other things that cause Horner's syndrome, and some of those include brain injury and brainstem injuries. He would have other symptoms going on other than his ears if that were the case. Because of the inner ear infection getting worse, we stopped Baytril and we started an antibiotic he has never been on. We started on clindamycin. He's been on amoxicillin, he's been on cefalexin, he's been on Baytril, he's been on, can't remember the other one right now, he was on that one too. So this is one he hasn't been on yet. We're trying this in the interim until we can figure out what we can do next. I was just looking at the video there of Gears. He's fun. Gears is very fun. I love Gears. Anyway, so the thing is, with this new infection, his seizures are back. And with the Vigence, he's becoming resistant to traditional methods of stopping the seizures. And we have worked very, very, very hard to give him a normal life, right? Um, we feel like it's a slap in the face to finally get seizures under control, and it ended up being an infection that ultimately ended up being the problem. So it's like we've done all this work, and we can't cross the finish line because veterinarian care is so expensive. Anyway, we've done a lot of work with him. As you can tell, we've given up a lot of things in our lives so that we can afford his care. He is on daily medication. His medication every month costs us about $150, and that's just for his standard epilepsy medication between Pheno and Keppra. That doesn't include Valium, emergency care visits, blood panels, or other things associated with having to make sure he is having an appropriate response to medications continuously, and that we don't have any organ damage that quickly results. He has had full panels recently to rule out anything else going on, and those are all clear. So this is our next step. What we need to do is definitive care for the place that we've approached with his treatment of epilepsy. Is we need to get a CT scan done. The CT scan ultimately will innervate the nerves and let us know if the nerves are still functional at all, and if they were damaged or if they're just compressed. And then they need to do something, a procedure that basically they go into the ear. Once they see the tympanic membrane, they will penetrate it with a needle and they aspirate it. What that means is they're going to take that needle, they're going to puncture it, and they're going to actually drain whatever's in there back into the needle. They're going to pull that out, and then they want to culture it to see what type of bacteria has grown that has become resistant to the traditional antibiotics that we've been using. Once that is done, then they'll actually be able to treat the current infection, and hopefully this will relieve the symptoms of compressing the nerve that's causing Horner syndrome, which is left-sided facial paralysis and gears. As a follow-up to make sure this doesn't happen again, because we have reached kind of the point where we kind of know what's going on with him. I'm watching the slideshow of him now. Anyway, so this is actually, he was younger before he had seizures. He stole Rich's sunglasses and took them out in the yard. These are my other two dogs, Lola and Sasha. Sasha was recently diagnosed with aggressive mast cell cancer. Anyway, Gears really likes boxes. I'm sure that's not the only dog in the world that likes boxes, but he loves boxes. Anyway, so the definitive is for the appointment. We want to do a full allergy test. He has had the blood test done before, which the dermatologist and many researchers at CSU assure me is not even remotely accurate or worth your time or money. So if you're ever thinking about doing an allergy panel that's just a blood test, I recommend not doing it. It's a waste of money, okay? Because we did it before. It was like $150 or $200 to get this done, and to spend that money and then have a professional and specialist tell you that those tests are basically void and don't tell you any actual information makes you want to slap yourself. Anyway, so a full allergy panel for him actually means that they are going to physically prick the skin and see what is causing this systemic response. The issue with this response is when he has a systemic response, kind of like an allergic reaction, it's not delivering his epilepsy medication correctly. And when that is interfered with, he has recurring seizures. So it's kind of like, pain in the butt to have these things going on, and finally get seizures under control, and then this infection comes back. We haven't changed anything. You know, the only thing that has changed is the season, right? It went from summer to fall to winter and back to spring. So it could be something that happens in the springtime that triggers allergies. And if that's true, and he does have some type of allergy to this, this can actually lead us to um, maybe a allergy medication he needs to take year round. Or if it's not allergy related at all, it could not be allergy related at all. It could just be, you know, just like in some kids, they're just prone to getting infections, and this might be something where we might need to take him in every month and just have his ears cleaned because he's just prone to infections. So that's what all the money that we raise for this project is going to go to. It's going to go directly to Gears' appointment at CSU in dermatology. This appointment is estimated to cost us between $2,500 and $3,500. Like I said, this includes a CT scan. It also includes an otoscope exam. It also includes a procedure that aspirates the bacterial. It also includes a full allergy panel. If we were to raise more money than our goal is, which would actually blow my mind if that happened. Okay, if that were to happen, I haven't decided actually what I want to do with the extra funds. There's two things that I have in mind that I would do with extra. One would be to obviously donate whatever's extra back to the CSU Research Center for continued research in veterinary science. They do a lot of research there, not just for small animals. They do it for exotic animals. They do it for large animals. It's just a full spectrum university, you know, and they're teaching all the future generations of veterinarians there. Highly recommend the center. However, I live in a rural town where we have very, very limited resources. For instance, when Garrett's had his bowel obstruction, the closest place to go to in order to get this taken care of is 3 hours away in Colorado Springs. That is the closest facility. By the time we got there, it was so advanced. Garrett's was in shock. He had substantial edema. He was given a blood transfusion and heated in hopes that he could be brought up enough to even be able to withstand the surgery. And that's not because our veterinarians here couldn't do the surgery. It's because they don't have the equipment to do the surgery. One of the big things that they needed was an ultrasound to even know what was going on, to even be able to find where it was at. And that's not something that they have in the facilities here. You know, it's a very, very small town, and we have very, very limited equipment. So one thing that I have considered donating to is donating back to this clinic, or even purchasing specific equipment in which, if I did do something like that, I obviously would speak to the veterinarian, who is Dr. Jensen Stoltz, who has been the one that has been a guiding light in actually giving life back to Garrett and allowing him have a life here while he's here on Earth. So I would talk to Dr. Stoltz about clinic needs and what are some of the pieces of equipment that he feels our area greatly lacks as far as small animal care. A lot of the veterinarians here, they don't operate in small animals. They work a lot with the ranchers, so they're more, you know, into cattle and horses and pigs and things like that, where, you know, it ends up being that a lot of resources aren't here for our canine and feline and friends. So I know that our veterinarian specifically is lacking a few pieces of equipment that would just really serve an underserved area, because there's even areas further out than us that have to come here for care, that unfortunately they still can't get the correct care because they don't have the equipment. So any excess, I'm going to create a poll for. So any excess that we have, if it is substantial, then I will create a poll, and I will let all of you decide if you would rather me donate that back to the research center, or if you would rather me just donate that to my local clinic to allow this underserved area to purchase equipment. Anyway, so that's going to conclude the video. I did want to bring Garrett into the video, but he's not feeling well, so he is sleeping, and he was very comfortable. I actually ended up taping his eye shut on one side. I did a saline rinse, and I taped his eye shut on one side, so he's very comfortable right now sleeping. In case you're interested, Gears is on regular medication. He takes 200 milligrams of phenobarbital and 2,000 milligrams of Keppra extended release twice a day. He is also on clindamycin, Benadryl, and milk thistle. Milk thistle is a liver support supplement. Um, he gets those items 3 hours after medication, and he also gets all of those 3 times a day. So we worked extensively. It's not like we are asking for help and we haven't done anything ourselves. I've been working tirelessly with him for 5 years now, and we finally gave life back to him. He went swimming, he went hiking, he was doing his thing. He was a happy dog. When we got seizures to stop. So if any of you feel led to help us out in any way, 50 cents, $1, $50, a share, all of that absolutely helps, 100%. As soon as we reach funding for this, we are able to get an appointment. We are in close contact with the researchers at CSU. They are very aware of what's going on. And so as soon as we reach that, then we are going to do it. Now, a caveat I want to say is that I did not do this through GoFundMe. The reason I didn't do this through GoFundMe is because GoFundMe charges you an additional percent per donation, and then it takes an additional percent per super fund, right? And so I was just thinking, if we were to raise, just to make it an even number, if we were to raise $3,000 and 4% of that have to go out of your pockets into PayPal or into GoFundMe just to fund GoFundMe, right? I really didn't want that to happen. I wanted it to be a true donation. So the PayPal donations are true donations. They do not take anything from the donation. They do not charge you extra up to $10,000. So with the PayPal donation, the account that it's going to, I have a PayPal card for. So what would happen is I would pay directly from PayPal into CSU for that. And so all the money that goes into PayPal goes directly to Gears. It's a separate account inside PayPal. I created a donate only link, so the link is only donations. Also, what I will end up doing is I will end up posting daily updates of how much we've been able to raise and how much we still have left to go. I will try to find a way to get that to track into the website so I can update that every day. I know GoFundMe is really good about automatic share buttons and automatic tracking and things like that, and those are great resources. But I would really like to be able to use any extra funds that come in to go back to veterinary science. I feel like that's what my fundraiser is about. That's what I've been about with Gears. This is a highly underfunded area. Veterinary resources are so expensive that if I can do anything to help alleviate that cost and pass whatever it is we're able to do on to someone else, it's really, really what I want to do. I don't want to give $1,200, $1,500 of, backlash off of donations back to a company that kind of created that. I want it to be a true donation. I don't want anyone to profit at all from it. Well, obviously the veterinarians will, but I really can't do anything about that. Otherwise, I don't want anyone else to profit off of it. So anything extra will go directly to there. And as soon as we reach our goal, we will schedule the surgery. So what I'll do throughout the time is I will post update videos. I will also get permission from CSU to see if I am able to do like a GoPro live with them when I take Gears up there. I don't know if they'll be able to video during the surgery, but I will work out as much information as I can for you guys so you can see what your donation will directly support. It's very, very hard for me to ask for donations or help because I have done everything myself. I've worked 2 or 3 jobs at a time. When I was in school and I had a VA stipend coming in paying for school, I still worked because I needed the extra money to pay for Gears. I really, really appreciate all of your time, all of your energy, all of your support with Gears. we are working very, very, very hard to give him. That picture just came up where he's sleeping. That dog is so funny. He sleeps with me a lot. He's a very cuddly dude. He's very, very friendly. At CSU, you know, he will follow a researcher anywhere. He just goes with them. They'll be like, oh, let's go. And he's like, all right, I'm going. You know, I don't know if that's just the life of him being in hospitals most of his life or if he's just a super friendly dog. So he's super friendly. But anyway, so back to what I was saying. All of your shares, everything helps. Everything helps. Even if you cannot donate, I totally understand that. Like I said, I am asking for help because we financially can't afford this last finish line for him. It feels so terrible to work for 3 years on pushing and pushing and pushing and learning and pushing and pushing and doing all these things for him, and then we finally reach that finish line where we finally know what's going on, and it's too expensive. We can't finish it for him. But I know with you guys' help, we'll be able to finish it. So hopefully, I think it'll be really cool if CSU will be able to do some video for you guys, and so you can see the otoscope and you can see the procedures. And of course, I'll always keep you updated on how Gears is doing. Right now he's sleeping very, very comfortably, and we are just hoping for a seizure-free month until we can get this figured out. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here. I just wanted to make a quick video, which probably ended up being much longer than expected. But I wanted to make sure you guys had the full information so you understand the impact of being able to actually go and finish the last part of the dermatology. Because we've already done so much for him that it's like, well, I can't believe he went that far and then didn't finish it, you know. So with you guys' help, I know that we can do it. I'm going to set the goal at 3,500 because that is the maximum amount that dermatology quoted me. And then, like I said, anything extra no one will profit from, I will donate it back either to the CSU Center or to an underprivileged veterinarian center, which I will allow you guys to vote on through a poll once the procedure has been completed. So anyway, so if you guys can share my video, if you can share my link, if you want to donate, please donate. If you want to share, please share. Everything helps. Be sure that you are always staying positive out there. And if you want to have more updates on Gears, you can follow me on my personal Facebook. Is a public Facebook. I encourage you. You can check that out. I do lots of updates on there about him. You can ask about him anytime. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that you guys need. But if you can't think of anything else that you want to know, just comment below. And let me know, and I will try to answer anything that I can. Thank you guys all for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.